We're less than a week into the Matt Rhule era, and it already feels like it's been a month. The biggest name in this class already announced he's reopening his recruitment. The biggest name on this staff is confirmed to be gone for good, and the most unique name on this roster is looking to go elsewhere. We knew changes were coming, but none of us knew it'd go down like this. The bright side is the new OC's coming off a massive end of season performance that resulted in 94 points, over 1,000 yards, and 2 top 10 wins. So at least somebody at this school's bringing in some positive momentum. The offseason officially starts Monday, so today I'm giving you my thoughts on the future offense, and we'll talk about Mickey's effect on recruiting, and we'll talk about the transfer portal. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss any of the videos I drop. And if you want a recruiting update video, hit the like button now and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
Yet across midfield. Touchdown, Nebraska! Omar Manning.
Yesterday was a lot, and I've seen comments and tweets everywhere talking about this Mickey Joseph situation, and people are still floating rumors and trying to understand what exactly happened. And honestly, I don't blame them, because Mickey's a polarizing figure, and these last few months, it seemed like he held a lot of power with the players and this team, so people were justified in their intense desire to want to keep him around. If you didn't watch the live stream yesterday, I'm going to leave you with my thoughts here because I can't respond to all the DMs. Not that I don't want to talk to you, but I just can't get involved in the drama that I know nothing about. I have zero idea about who's in the right, who's in the wrong, or what's true, but my hope is that everyone involved, Mickey, his kids, his wife, and all the players in Nebraska who love and admire this guy are all able to heal from this situation, learn from it, and can continue to live happy, healthy, and fulfilling lives after it's all sorted out. I thought about the Nebraska curse yesterday and all the memes around our program these last couple years. And honestly, the programs felt like a little bit of a joke. But we aren't alone because every school has their issues. We're just in it here, so things feel worse than they actually are. But yesterday I wrote this tweet that pretty much sums up why I think Trev went the direction that he did. After all the instability, unfortunate happenings, and craziness at Nebraska, now more than ever, I see how important a proven leader with the strong values Matt Rhule has shown is for this program. I'm not saying he's perfect by any means, but I am saying right now feels like a great time to lock in with a guy whose track record's positive and has proven he can build from ground zero, since there's no question at this point, we're at ground zero. And the last thing I want to share, because I've gotten so many messages about it, there's a rumor floating around about former Nebraska quarterback Steve Taylor being tied to this situation, but I saw he posted on Facebook with his own statement, shooting all that down. Now that we know Mickey's gone and Rhule's going to have to find a new receivers coach, the question is, what happens with some of the guys on this roster currently, and what happens with recruiting? The first name we saw decommit, which isn't surprising at all since he's such a big name and he cannot afford to risk his future, is Malachi Coleman. This morning he announced that he's reopening his recruitment and that he wants to reevaluate Nebraska and some other schools, which means he's still going to sit down with Matt Rhule and the new staff soon, and hopefully they all fit well together and he ends up a member of this class. We haven't heard anything from Barry Jackson or Omarion Miller, who are both currently committed, but I'm keeping an eye on both of those guys and pretty much anybody who's linked to Mickey or Applewhite specifically. But looking at Marcus Washington, Alante Brown, and even Janirin Bonner, I'd assume all three of those guys stay since they've got the leg up talent-wise, and they should all be competing for starting spots come spring. This offense will have a new identity anyway, so even if a bunch of guys do decommit and we got to start from scratch, this new staff will go out and find guys that fit in with exactly what they're planning to run. The transfer portal officially opens this Monday, so all of the guys who've said they intend to enter can officially start taking visits next week. If you follow @RivalsPortal on Twitter or @TransferPortal on Instagram, then you've already seen hundreds of players announcing that they're going to leave their schools. Nebraska already offered a lineman from Rhode Island, but in literally just 24 hours, he has 16 offers from Penn State, Oregon, Minnesota, and a bunch of other Power Fives. I've seen at least 10 linemen in there so far, so hopefully Rhule can get his staff in place by Sunday so they're ready to go hard recruiting next week. And I'll work on a recruiting update this weekend or early next week to break down everybody who Matt Rhule's staff is targeting to give you an idea of what type of players they're trying to build with. On the flip side, which is every Nebraska fan's fear, the portal might not be too friendly to us early on. And I've got no clue how many current players are considering leaving, but I gotta guess around 10 big names who've played could hit the portal now that we know Applewhite, Bush, Becton, and Mickey are all 100% out. The coaches started evaluating players this week, and so far, Coldest Crawford, Brant Banks, and Ernest Hausman are all headed to the portal. We knew that the Coldest announcement was going to come since he was directly tied to Mickey, but he hasn't done anything here yet, so that one isn't too painful. Banks, I'm not too surprised by either since the O-line's had some major issues, and I don't know how the new staff views anybody who's played. But the Ernest Hausman news hurts because he played a ton as a true freshman and he's got a really bright future. So I'm sure whatever school he ends up at could very well turn him into a draft pick 2 or 3 years from now. If Rhule somehow keeps the current roster intact and we don't see many more guys than that dip out, I'd be shocked and I'd feel really good about the staff he brought on. Nebraska made it official today with 6 new hires, but we knew they were coming and we talked about these guys a little bit the other day. I think the most important thing to note here is that 4 out of 5 of these position coaches have something in common. Satterfield was the director of recruiting at Baylor. Barthel was the recruiting coordinator at Penn State. Cooper was the recruiting coordinator at Baylor. And Foley was the recruiting coordinator at Temple. The common theme we hear from outsiders when they talk about the Nebraska job is how important it is to recruit and to get the right players in who can compete with the Michigans and the Ohio States and now the USCs and UCLAs, since we're chasing championships and trying to build a team that can compete in a 12-team playoff. Matt Rhule's never had the resources, the fan support, the tradition, the facilities, or any of these other key selling points that Nebraska can offer. And on top of all that, he's never had NIL and he's never had the portal. I think it's safe to say I'm pretty excited to see all this unfold. Tomorrow night, I'm locked in on the Pac-12 championship game with USC fighting for the first Pac-12 playoff berth since, I think, 2016. And a month ago, I was sitting at negative 500 in my Bro Throw account after a pretty bad weekend of picks. But since then, I've picked up 1,900 in winnings, and my pick record the last 2 Saturdays is 27-5, which might be the hottest streak I've ever been on. I only bet 75 to 150 a game, but my friend Josh went crazy these last few weeks, and he built his account to almost 33,000 in winnings after he started off with 1,500 in bets his first day. He and I are going big on USC to beat Utah tomorrow, so if you want to ride that play, you can join our Corn Craze group by heading to brothrow.com/GBR, where you can make a free account and bet anywhere from $1 to $100 on any of the games this weekend. And Bro Throw's available in all 50 states, and you just have to be 18 plus to use it. So if you haven't made an account yet, but you use other sites to bet on sports, I'd suggest checking it out so you can at least save 10% on the big, since Bro Throw's a peer-to-peer sports betting platform and not a sports book. Now that Marcus Satterfield's officially locked in as Nebraska's offensive coordinator, I want to break down his past and what we're getting at OC. And I'll do a breakdown on some of these other position coaches too, but today we're just focusing on Satterfield and the offense. We know he spent the last 2 years at South Carolina, but let's look back at his entire career. His first 12 years were spent as a receivers coach and an OC at 4 different FCS schools in the South. 2013 was his first year as a Power 5 coach, and Matt Rhule made him the offensive coordinator out the gate after Nick Rolovich backed out of taking the Temple OC job, and he ended up staying at Nevada. In year 1, Temple finished 2-10, but the offense was as good as it had been in 30 years, and they averaged over 400 yards a game, and they finished 3rd in the AAC with almost 150 yards rushing a game. Satterfield stayed until the 10-4 season before he dipped out for a head coaching job with Tennessee Tech, but after failing there, he went straight back to Rhule to be the tight ends coach for Baylor, and then he was an assistant offensive line coach for Rhule on the Panthers. When Shane Beamer took over at South Carolina last season, he pulled Satterfield in to be his OC, but things did not go too well in year 1. To be fair, I think a grad assistant had to play QB when he first got there because they ran out of options, and that's not an exaggeration. South Carolina ended up finishing number 106 nationally in total offense, but they did end up going 7-6 with a bowl win. But this year was a completely different story. Beamer landed 6 guys to help the offense through the portal, including Spencer Rattler at QB and Antoine Wells, who went for almost 900 yards receiving. And they jumped 65 slots and finished this year ranked 45th in total offense nationally, scoring 32 points a game. In 3 big wins, Satterfield's offense put up 24 on a Kentucky defense that ranks 20th. They put up 63 on Tennessee and 31 on Clemson, who has the 22nd best defense in the country. And Shane Beamer's a great coach, and I'm sure he helped in the game planning. But Satterfield was the play caller both years, and he got paid $900K, which is the same as what Whipple was offered when Frost took him from Pitt last year. Rhule's bringing in a real OC with a ton of experience. The interesting part about the Satterfield hire is that he wasn't the OC when Baylor excelled at running the RPO. And for those unfamiliar with what an RPO is, it's a run-pass option. The quarterback can hand the ball to the running back, or he can throw it depending on how the defense reacts to the play. This worked really well in the Big 12 since most teams could score at will, and running the ball downhill all game probably wouldn't get you into the 30-point range necessary that it took to win a shootout. Satterfield's the OC Rhule had at Temple, and their 2016 offense featured a quarterback who threw it 400 times for 3,300 yards and 2 running backs who went for 900 plus yards each. And the quarterback lined up under center or in shotgun, but the RPO wasn't a part of their plan back then. My understanding is that Rhule wants to be physical and his priority is to run the ball, but the guys who he had to recruit at Baylor came from Texas high schools where the RPO was a standard offense those guys ran. In his words, the RPO is meant to protect the run game, exploit the defense, put defenders in conflict, spread the ball around, and negate defensive pursuit. And with all the pressure that comes when playing elite Big Ten defenses, the RPO might give Satterfield's offense the best chance at having pre-snap answers for outside linebacker and nickel blitzes that would usually lead to Casey having to force throws downfield instead of dropping short, easy throws right over whichever defender's head is coming in on the blitz. If you're just a casual fan, this can get really confusing, so I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole, but without a long-form explanation, this might be a great scheme if the offensive line is going to continue to struggle. From what I've read about both these coaches and their history on offense, it sounds like they're willing to adjust and do what works based on their competition and based on their personnel. But that being said, I don't know how this offense is going to look this year. I'm sure we're going to see some RPO, but are they going under center and lining up to run downhill since that's what Michigan and Wisconsin have been successful doing? Do they rely on Casey or another dual threat guy to spread the field like Ohio State and USC are doing out of shotgun? The spread kind of feels unlikely, but I wouldn't expect any hard answer right away because this staff has the next month or so to make minor adjustments and tweak some things based on what they learn from Big Ten film. But one of the most exciting talking points leading up to the August kickoff is going to be how this offense is going to look on game day. I'm guessing we see more emphasis on the power run game than we saw under Whipple, and the focus likely shifts to game management and slower marches down the field as opposed to quick strike 60-yard bombs to guys like Trey Palmer. And I don't expect to see the quarterbacks run too often, but Rhule loves the short yardage QB sneak, and he's never had a QB who can't move around the pocket. So Casey fits pretty well with what I bet he's trying to build around. Once we hear from Satterfield in some interviews, we can revisit what they're hoping to build, but for now, I'm just glad we have coaches who are willing to adjust to the Big Ten instead of trying to force the Big Ten to adjust to them. And I'll have another video up by Saturday to talk about recruiting, but I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Does Marcus Satterfield's previous success turning South Carolina into a legit offense give you hope, or are you holding out till you see him do it in the Big Ten? And is Rhule more focused on the run game, or does he stick with the RPO and rely on the short pass game? And are you worried about losing a bunch of guys to the portal, or have you accepted that a system reset might be a good thing? I lean towards the latter since there have been so many damn issues in this program, but we'll see how it all shakes out. So until then, thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Go Big Red.